watching one of your videos and I went, hey, wait a second. Wesley's got a Shopsmith. So,
Yep.
and then I say that, no, you don't. You have two shop. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Hey, Scott from mygrowthrings.com here. And with me is Mr. Wesley Treat. If you don't know Wesley, you ought to should. He is a sign maker. He is a woodworker, a metal worker. He's a photographer and has a tremendous eye for things that interest me. Wesley, thanks for joining me today.
Hi. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
and first off, what do you consider yourself? Have you accepted the term maker or creator, or what do you call yourself?
No, I still haven't figured out the elevator pitch for what I do.
Yeah.
I tell people I make things. I say I make things for bars and restaurants, which is, where a lot of my client base comes from, although I don't do as much of that now, but that kind of gives them an idea. So, but yeah, maker, I guess I accept the term artist sometimes, depending on what I'm doing.
Can you explain like what different materials are you typically using in your shop?
Yeah, it depends on, just about everything, wood, metal, plastic. A lot of acrylic, I've done some casting, molding and casting, that kind of thing.
But you pick any one of those, and there are people that's all they do. That's all they've ever done is work with acrylic. This is where I think it's taken me a while to accept that maker term. And it's not even I don't accept that for myself, but for folks like yourself, like Jimmy DiResta, people that are into all sorts of materials and methods, I think maker does fit. So
yeah, I'm a general.
So the way I first encountered your work, and I actually have had a couple brushes with you, it turns out, but the first time was sitting under a ginormous chandelier at a hamburger joint in Dallas.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? I'll put a picture up. But what's that all about? Whose idea was that?
Oh, I may have missed part of what you said there, but it's a guy. He owned a number of restaurants. It's a local burger chain. He has since sold it off to somebody else, and now he's concentrating on it. Or his house, somebody introduced me to him. He was building this. His basement is just the most ridiculous. But I hate the term, but man cave is what it was. He's got all these velvet paintings of like characters from 80s movies, and like a little stage in the corner, and this there. I made him a chandelier out of poker chips, and then he started asking me to do stuff for his different restaurants. And he was opening a new place. Half of it was a burger place, half of it was a chicken place. And he wanted a gigantic chandelier for each one of those in two different styles. So he's like, go 10 feet tall. And so I designed something out of beer bottles. And as far as I know, it is the world's largest beer bottle chandelier. I have not had that verified with Guinness, but I have not found another one. The chicken place, they stopped using the chicken place. It's just, they were connected. They stopped doing chicken, but
okay.
I think you can rent out the space for other things now, for where that other one, the other chandelier is, but I think usually you can't see it anymore.
Well,
he sold that off, and I'm about to do, he owns a building here in Dallas that it's a theater that he leases out to a local theater troupe, a comedy troupe. But the front of it looks very much like the courthouse from Back to the Future. And he and I are both big Back to the Future fans. And we've been trying to get it going for a couple of years, and I think we're about to do it. I'm going to do the clock tower. I'm going to actually do the clock and the statues and everything. And I'm making it
wow.
I'm teaming up with Wes Swain. If you know Wes Swain, everybody knows who Wes Swain is.
Yeah.
He's already modeled. I just sent him a bunch of screenshots. There's a lot of people don't remember, there's two Black Panthers on either side of that clock.
Okay.
And I just sent him a bunch of screenshots from the movie, and he modeled it like exactly perfectly, the statue. And he's going to 3D print those and send me the parts, and I'm going to finish it and install that. It's going to be a whole thing. So
I don't remember the Black Panthers. Are they
Yeah,
on
nobody.
the sides of the
Yeah, yeah,
clock
they're
face
on.
or?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, there's actually a shot
Wow.
where, yeah, Doc is climbing up there and like lightning goes off,
Yeah.
and like one of them is right in his face, and he freaks out.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Golly, how did I not remember that?
right. Yeah, nobody remembers them, but yeah, they're there. So we're gonna do the whole we're gonna do the whole thing. So
And
that's,
nobody
by the way,
does
that
that.
story is kind of how my career goes, where you start at one point and I just, yeah. But that's how a lot
Lightning
of my
flash
dogs,
and
yeah. So
okay, so then take me back. So the other brush with you, I didn't know this, but I went looking for information about you as I thought I'm going to reach out to you because again, reasons. And then I saw that you authored this and I owned this.
oh
Now
yeah.
I've since purchased this, but I guess this isn't even the end. Is that right? Did you
Which one is that? I can't.
I had
Arizona.
Texas and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oklahoma. Take us in Arizona.
Yeah.
Are there more?
I did 3. I did Texas, and I did Arizona, and I did Oklahoma. And there are others in the series. It's not, it's actually owned by 2 guys in New Jersey. They've been doing
Yeah.
a magazine called Weird New Jersey for years now. And several years ago, it must be 15 years ago now, maybe more, they got a deal to do a series of books. And they decided, I think they did one Weird US, which is kind of a compilation. And then they reached out to other writers to do the various states. And I was running a website at the time that was all about, weird roadside attractions in Texas. And so they reached out to me to contribute to Weird Texas. And then I ended up doing 2 more after that. So it was like subcontracted out.
Gotcha.
It's their series. They were my bosses, and then they had the publisher that they reported to. It was, it's not the usual setup.
I believe they make that clear in the intro to the book. They wanted to make sure that they got credit for this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Their names are at the top. My name's a little bigger, but their names are right at their top.
Did I hold it up high enough? Make sure that are you
There you
getting any
go.
residuals from these anymore, or is that over?
Not really. It's at the
Well,
point
then
where
forget these.
I think I get it. Yeah, I think I get a small one once a year now, but it's not very
Okay.
much anymore. We hit saturation some time ago.
So here's
They
the
don't
point
even
about
make
that.
the hardbacks anymore.
That was what connected me to you in the sense that your eye is attracted to the things that my eye is attracted to. My wife and I, for our 40, how many years of marriage, I always forget. She says 27 happy years, but it's been 40 some years. Whenever we go anywhere, we always take the state route. So we can go through the old cities and see the old hotels and motels and diners and all those things. Just we're so attracted to that. And signs play such a big part of that. So I know in your business, you've done quite a number of signs. You did at least one YouTube video where you went to one of the restaurants that you were making a huge sign for. And as you're walking through, I made that, I made that one. Those are fantastic. Yep. How did you get into that?
It's connected to the books. And I'm the same way where I prefer to drive when I can. That's why whenever I go to Maker Camp each year, I actually make the 2-day trek all the way up to Jimmy's, because I prefer to drive and I try to, stop and see things. But I was doing those books, and for each one of those, I was on the road for, 2 or 3 weeks total, like a week at a time, just on the road. And I started noticing these, all these signs, and being a photographer, I stopped and started shooting them, and just kind of fell in love with that old Googie style. What I learned later was called Googie.
So explain Googie, because I love Googie too.
It's that style of, it refers to like signage and architecture, that sort of mid 20th century, with the swooping arrows and the great big pointy roofs, the gas stations that stick out, that kind of thing. It's named after John Lautner was an architect at the time, and he kind of gave birth to that. He designed, it doesn't exist anymore. It was in LA. It was a cafe called Googie's. That's where the name comes from. and it just kind of stuck. So it's that, the neon and the big fonts and the more interesting.
I think of the Jetsons.
Yeah.
Right, that
Yeah.
aesthetic. I think of the Welcome to Las Vegas sign with the starburst.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
satellites and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the Sputniks.
Yeah. Like
were
yeah, this
huge.
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a thing
make
for
one?
Sputniks. I've made one of my first, it's inside. One of the first things I made was a great big Sputnik that never sold. Nobody ever bought it. I'm glad they didn't. They should have, because I was selling it for way cheap at the time. And I did do a video where I made 3 of them for a drive-in movie theater. I do, like, what my 2 biggest clients right now are the guy with that I'm doing the Back to the Future thing for, and a guy who owns a drive-in movie theater in upstate New York, who coincidentally is like an hour away from Jimmy.
Oh my gosh.
So I've visited there a couple of times, but I did 3 Sputniks for him, and I think I did a 2-part video on that. So yeah, I have a big thing for Sputnik.
Motorized Sputnik?
I haven't. There is. See, you get me off on these things.
Yeah, because there's a few versions, right? There's the one where the whole thing spins, and there's also one with like a ring, Saturn ring sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot that are just like one-offs that are part of signs, but there you can find, if you start looking into it, there's a few that were like kind of mass produced by certain sign companies. And there's one in particular, it's called a rotosphere. And his name was Warren Milk. And you can find the patent on it too. And I think we'll get into that stuff later.
Yeah.
But it's one that if anybody wants to, I definitely go Google this. Google Rotosphere by Warren Milk. He made a certain number of them. Somebody's done the research on this, but only a few have survived. Like, we know exactly where they are. There's one in Dallas here. It's rusted up, but it still stands. But originally they rotate like this, but also each half does this as it rotates.
Right.
And it's fascinating. I think right now there's only 2 that are fully operational. One in New Mexico, and one a guy restored. He bought it from a motel in Kentucky, and I can't remember where he moved it to. And I only remember that because as I was driving back from Maker Camp last year, I stopped to see that one, and it vanished. And I found out somebody got it. If I had known it was for sale, I would have tried to snatch it myself. But I've wanted to recreate one of those. I don't know. I'm not very mechanical, like mechanical things, engines, motors, that sort of, I'm not very good at, but I'd like to figure out, how to maybe, if I can do that, if not, at least make one that doesn't move for out here.
Is that not what's covered by the patent, or is it a design patent?
I'm not sure. I can't remember. I mean, it's expired at this point now, but.
Oh, no, I know that, but.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's talk about patents for a minute.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if I told you, but for about 12 years, my wife and I owned an online business. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
I just remembered that.
We owned a business that was called Patent Place USA. And we sold what we called patent art prints, where we were taking the same patents that today you can get through Google. Back in those days, you couldn't. You had to go to the USPTO.
Right.
And you download a copy that some of our highest paid federal employees would spend their time scanning, sometimes straight, sometimes not, with the same dirt on the glass platen as the last one they did. So you'd get these little specks of things. Anyway, she would spend hours digitally cleaning all these up and straightening them out as best she could. And then she would print them on parchment. We sold them for, like I say, about 12 years. And then we got focused on some other thing and she let it go. But it came out of my hobby of studying patents, because I'm a patent nerd. I just think they're fascinating. And the artwork is just incredible. So how did you, first off, obviously you at some point got into looking at patents. Tell me more about that.
I can't remember exactly why I started this. It's a project I've been working on. I just released a couple of videos on it. but it was an idea that I had like exactly 10 years ago last month, something I was trying to do, and I can't remember how I got the idea, but I dug up a whole bunch of patents on these toy ray guns that were really popular because of shows like Buck Rogers and Commander Cody, these various serialized, you know,
Yeah.
TV shows, and so they started selling these toys based on these designs. And back in the 50s, that the whole space thing was really popular. So
Yeah.
I dug up the patents, and I was trying to make these like prints, sort of like you were talking about, but on metal. And I couldn't quite get it to work consistently. I was using like a toner transfer method, and I sold a couple of them. A couple of friends of mine here in Dallas have a place called Neighborhood. It was it's a boutique place, and they were selling some of my, like I was making channel letters, like aged channel letters with bulbs in them, that sort of thing. And I sold a few of them through there, but they were just too difficult to get right, and I abandoned it. And somehow I thought of this. I got a laser cutter, and it just hit me. Oh yeah, maybe I should try those things again. And just coincidentally, it had been exactly 10 years. And I dug up all those patents that I had saved. I save everything. I'm a data hoarder, so I still had all that stuff, and decided to try them again. And on the laser, they came out fantastic. So, and I have one because I've been filling orders. Is that?
That's gorgeous.
Reflections. Yeah, there we go. So I decided I've done 6 of these designs. And I did the same thing you were talking about. I dug up the scans and had to clean them up and vectorize them, and kind of rearrange things to fit. And it was the artwork that got me. Was it's this sort of like cross hatching, shading sort of style that modern patents just they don't have that anymore. And all of these, all these designs were it's the whole thing together, that style with the the sci-fi retro futuristic, I loved it. And they came out great. So I said, what, let me try selling these again. And I put them on the website, and apparently a lot of other people love these too. So I've been busy filling orders on these. And
you did a video initially just showing this, I'm gonna try this, and you did it. And
it was me. Yeah.
And then you had requests to buy it, or what did you?
I decided, because I sell every once in a while, I'll sell something that they make. I tried doing some block prints with spray paint to see if that would work, and decided to sell some of those. I designed the
bar clocks that you made, right? At one point.
I did a bunch of those. I didn't end up selling those. Those were all for that same guy with the restaurants. Yeah.
Oh wow.
He's got his own like line of beers now. So those were to give to other bars. But every once in a while I'll sell something and put it out there. And I usually get like, I've got like, a core, set of subscribers, and I'll usually sell mostly to them. But this one seems to have hit a wider audience. So I did a follow-up video, and I didn't actually expect it to do very well, but it was going from, developing the techniques to make the thing into figuring out how to mass produce them, streamlining the whole thing. And so that was the second video, and then got another, I don't know if I hit a different audience for that, but a lot of them have started buying them too. So I just sent out an email saying, I didn't expect this, by the way, so give me a couple of weeks, because I've got to pick up more materials. And so I'm waiting for my, suppliers out of Baltic birch right now. So I'm waiting for that to come in.
I think you're right about perhaps hitting a different audience, because when you're showing methods of work and how to do something in serial production, that's very interesting to more than just your average hobbyist. So
yeah, I almost didn't, because I did the shipping part too. because that's a big part. Try figuring how to streamline that,
Yes.
which I've done before when I was selling these little mini wiener grills. I was
No, I didn't buy the wiener grill. I bought the flame throwing rabbit.
from that was from
Maker Camp, right?
the Maker Camp. Yeah, we can talk about that too if you want. So I did, I included that on the shipping stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna lose people at this point, but there were people who said, "Hey, thanks for hi."
I got people here, Wesley. Sorry about that.
Sorry. There were people who said, "Hey, thanks for including the shipping stuff because that's something I wanted to know about."
Yes.
So because that's a whole other.
You even 3D printed
Can
a
of worms.
solution to bagging items that was very clever.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you got inspiration from McDonald's French fry loader.
Yeah, the little thing. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
and it's still for anybody who has watched that. I'm still updating the shipping stuff. I've abandoned those little sleeves because I had a couple of them split and like the screws went everywhere. So I switched to, I found some test tubes that exactly fit, some plastic test tubes, and they fit everything perfectly. So I've switched to those.
Good
So
idea.
it's still evolving.
Make friends with a cigar smoker and get the little tubes at the cigar.
Yeah,
smoker.
exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about the sign that you made with Jimmy. For those of you who don't know.
Oh yeah.
And gosh, Mike, I mean, I think everybody knows Jimmy DiResta, but if you don't know, again, huge maker. And he does every year a thing he calls Maker Camp. And you went up there and hung out, or were you there before? Or how did that process even happen?
I did. Well, I kind of knew Jimmy before that started. When was the first one? 2019?
Okay,
I think, just before, like the second year didn't happen because of COVID. They did like an online thing, I think, but it's right down the road from Jimmy's place up in East Durham, New York. There's a resort there, like this old, like when you think of the Catskills, like Catskill Resort, this place has been around for decades. People would vacation there, that kind of thing, and they hold events there. I think they have a big biker thing every year. And the owner's son, Austin, knew Jimmy and started talking to him about starting a new event there at the resort. And so Jimmy and Austin kind of organized this whole thing. And it was right when the big maker fairs stopped. They had one in New York and San Francisco. So it was kind of perfect timing. And it's a lot more, it's kind of for makers by makers. There's still sponsorship and that sort of thing. You get some corporate tents or but it's a lot more
welding supplies and
hands-on.
epoxy.
Yeah, you get Total Boat's there. Total Boat, by the way, shout out to them. They're a fantastic group of people. But they'll do it's like come and make little boats and things and actually do hands-on. So it's not just like presentation, here's our latest welder. It's come learn welding.
Right.
And Chad from Man Crafting, he was out there doing powder coating, like teaching people powder coating. They have a tent where you can learn how to forge like an anvil and an actual like coal forge. It's not coal, what is it? Yeah, it's anyway.
It's blacksmithing. It's forging.
Yeah. And so I wasn't going to go the first year, but at the last minute, I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going to drive up there, and made the 2-day trek and got a room and had the best time because it was like all the people in the community. It's very close knit, but it's also very inviting to other people. And it had just a completely different feel to it. So, and that's why I wanted to get involved that next year.
So different feel than like the Makers Fair? Is that what you're saying, or?
Which also is, it's not saying anything bad against Maker Fair or anything like that, but it was, it's a different feel. Like Maker Fair has a lot, like there's some like Ziggy's more, it's like you got electronics and robotics and like Star Wars, like R2D2, the R2D2 makers group, stuff like that, and some cosplay and things like that. And but Maker Camp feels more like I guess it's dirtier. It's doing like the forging and hand carving
Hands-on.
and yeah, a lot of stuff like that. Which I mean, they do have some hands-on stuff at Maker Faire, and this is more dangerous. It's more likely to get hurt
Okay,
at Maker
just a
Faire.
fire alone, I think
Yeah,
qualifies it.
yeah,
as
and
that.
also like and at night it's we've got some fire pits going and people drinking and hanging out and and it's camping. Some people are actually in tents. People are staying in the cabins and RVs and stuff, and so it's a lot. It's more like going off to camp when you were a kid, that kind of thing, but just with power tools. So I wanted to it was still a growing thing. We were still kind of figuring it out. And I told Austin I wanted to be involved and I said, hey, I felt like the one thing missing was a closing ceremony, like that final night. Let's do some big thing and get everybody together. And I hit up Michael Alm, and I had the idea of doing like a big build that people could watch getting built over the weekend, and then we just burn it down. And he had done something very similar, so I went to him for his expertise, and he was instrumental in making it work. And we built it was a big dinosaur. Do I have one over there? I think maybe I broke him. But we've got a little metal version of it. And you had mentioned the
Jackalope.
a Jackalope the second year. Yeah. And I've got the kit over there. I don't think I've put it together yet. But so that's how I got involved. And I got to know Jimmy more, during Maker Camp and that kind of thing. And we had talked, and we had hung out at like Workbench Con and the other places. And we started talking about his big, workshop that he built, that great big workshop there on his property. And I said, hey, we should put a big sign on it. Let's do a big neon sign. And he goes, yeah, okay. And so we just kept bringing it up for a couple of years until I said, hey, this year after Maker Camp, why don't we do this? Why don't we build this big sign? And let's make it huge, because the front of his shop is big. And I did a mock-up and I'm like, we can't do a 6-foot sign. So I wanted to go, I tried to convince him to go 20 feet, but that was a little too big. He said, let's go 10. I said, we'll compromise. We'll just do 12. Let's go 12. And so I designed.
But the sign is so big that Jimmy had to weld together a stand, right? At some point, you had to put it upright. That's a huge sign.
Yeah, we have not been able to. Let me grab a sticker, so people know what it looks like.
I have one of your stickers. I should have had it here.
Okay, here. So this is the design. So I had these stickers made up, and he said he wanted it to say, all makers welcome. We want to do a big like Googie arrow, and so I put something together. I decided makers should be the biggest part of it, so it changed to welcome all makers. And it's got chasing light bulbs and tons of neon on it. And
so I don't want to give anything away because people need to watch the video. It's very interesting. It's entertaining. How much neon did you have to have produced? Yeah, okay, that's right. How much? Because you have a source there locally or somewhere in Texas that does neon for you. That's a lot of neon.
That's a whole other skill. I keep bugging him. One of these days, I want to learn how to do it, but he did. So I give him my designs, and we worked together for 10 years now, I think. So we kind of have a shorthand. I can say, give me that single stroke. He usually knows what I want and which colors, and and then he can output it. And so this is the biggest. I think it's the biggest sign I've ever done. And so he did the neon. And I had to build out of plywood a great big cargo carrier to go on top of my car just to get the neon out there. Only broke one piece. And then we had a whole ordeal. They sent out a replacement, also got broken, sent out another replacement. It was a whole thing. So that was, it was very nerve-wracking putting the neon on at the end there.
But so cool. I've never seen that. That was so neat to see how that even works. Thank you for sharing all that.
It was, it's simpler than you might think. And that's one of the first things I learned, when I went to the guy originally, I'm like, I think I want to, because I was already making some small signs. I said, hey, I think I want to make some neon. And I contacted him. He goes, yeah, it's simple. Here, you transformer, we make the neon, we put the ends together, ta-da. And now I kind of know what I'm doing on that end. So
What's it like doing a collaboration with somebody like Jimmy? Somebody who's got his own style. You're in his shop, so you're not even at your home shop. You know,
yeah,
you
it
don't
was
have your
all
own tools. You can have any bandsaw you could possibly want access to, but I'm sure there were
right.
points where you needed something maybe that you didn't have. What's that like?
I took, yeah, my car was so full with the carrier on top, and I had bins full of tools for the maker burn, and also tools for the sign, because I was going to stay a couple of weeks. It ended up being like a month. I was there for like a month, staying at Jimmy's place, and I took all of the tools that I usually use in building a sign. I had my riveter, special hand tools and things that I know I use a lot, my Clecos, all of the rivets I would need, that sort of thing. Turns out Jimmy actually still has most of those things. So everything
well,
I had,
we found that interesting.
Yeah. So
I thought you were going to lose some of those as soon as he started playing with them.
Right. No, yeah, so I made sure I had, all of my tools there. He had a metal bending brake and moved it over from the other shop and set it up. And I got to use his great big new welding table. And, he's one of the most generous guys I know. He's like, yeah, make yourself at home. He gave me a room upstairs, whatever you want. There's food in the fridge, go out in the shop, whatever you want, use whatever tools you want. And I spent, many, many days working on that sign. He built it was kind of different from what I'd done before. It's so big, and there had to be a big frame that went inside.
Yeah.
So he built the frame. And so I had to have everything figured out before I left. Some things when I build a sign, some things I can kind of figure out as I go along. I know something's going to go here, but I can, figure out that detail when I get there. But this, because there's a big frame inside and the neon has to connect at certain places, I have to make sure the frame clears those spots. So the entire thing had to be finalized. And then I sent him diagrams for the frame, and he welded that up before I got there. And so it was a whole trying to coordinate with another person like that. I hadn't quite done that before, which was really interesting. And
what was there a single point though where you had like an error or a change of plan that was a bit of a roadblock, or did everything go smoothly?
Luckily, we didn't. There was, just before I left, there was a connecting point on. It was like up here. I think one of the ends here, or no, it was on the lettering. It was supposed to be split at a certain point, but the guy who was bending it accidentally put it in a different spot, which ran right into the frame.
Oh.
And I noticed that before I left. And so I just kind of shifted the frame a little and resent it to Jimmy. I'm like, sorry, we got to shift this over. That was the only part where we had a problem.
That's great.
Part of the frame at the top, because of heat distortion, kind of came in, but we ended up just cutting it, rewelding it. And there was nothing that was like a huge problem, except for breaking that one piece of neon and trying to replace it from many miles away.
Would you do it again? Does he need one at his go-kart place, or?
Yeah. I had a lot of fun. It was great because I got to stay up there. It was fall because the Maker Camp is in October, and I got to get away. And it's a little weird getting used to somebody else's shop, but like I said, he just gives me access to whatever. And sometimes he was there, sometimes he was not. He has his other jobs he's doing and stuff, and sometimes he's working on his boat while I'm working on the sign. And it was nice having somebody else in the shop with you, because I'm here in my shop by myself most of the time. I wouldn't do it all the time. It's like having a roommate.
You don't have chickens?
No chickens, no. Yeah, also, his chickens all the time. And there was a bear in the area.
Yes.
Yeah, that first day we showed up, there was a bear running around that like
Gosh.
actually chased Jimmy at one point. And so he had to start, he goes on walks at night and he had to start carrying bear spray because, and I was,
Nope. Nope.
yeah, there was
Yeah,
one
but
night.
you have feral hogs in Texas, so you don't have to worry about the feral hogs.
Not around here, thankfully. But yeah, it scared me at something moved in the bushes at one point and I took off. But yeah, it was an experience.
Okay,
I'm
so
looking forward to going back.
I bet. Shift gears here. Again, kind of that 1950s look and the way of thinking that was going on back then. There was a very popular tool made late 40s, early 50s that caught on. And
Right.
completely unrelated, I'm watching one of your videos and I went, hey, wait a second. Wesley's got a Shopsmith. So,
Yep.
and then I say that, no, you don't. You have two shop. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
I
How long have
did.
you
I
had these
did.
tools?
It was, by the way, shout out to my dad. It would be my dad's birthday today, but I inherited his Shopsmith. He had it since I could remember. I don't remember him not having a Shopsmith. It was in the house I grew up in his garage. Had like a 1-car garage. And I don't actually know. I know he and his best friend, his nickname was Red. They moved to Texas from Kentucky, and they're like best friends their whole lives. And they both had one. I don't know if they bought them at the same time. I think maybe they did, but it had always been around. So I kind of learned, my initial, woodworking skills on the Shopsmith. And when he retired several years ago, it would have been like, it was about 18 years ago. He retired from a job he worked more than 30 years and sold that house, built a house out here in the country next to Red. Red gave him like an acre and a half of his property because he had lived out here south of Dallas for a very long time. He built this workshop and moved the Shopsmith out here. And so it followed him. And that's what I was still making stuff on in the very beginning when I first started. I came down here every once in a while. I actually live in Dallas. I was coming down here every once in a while just to learn how to make signage. I was teaching myself how to make signage. And I started selling that on Etsy. And so I was still using that. And Red passed away several years ago. And so my dad inherited his Shopsmith. So now there's 2 Shopsmiths out here. His had kind of the upgraded tables and stuff. And my brother that's the one that I have now is Red.
510 model, they call that, yeah.
And I gave my brother my dad. So he has that.
Okay.
He moved into a place and got a new garage. And so my brother has my dad's now. And I still have some more accessories up in the loft here and stuff. And I use it for, I've since gotten, like a saw stop and another drill press and stuff, so a lot of the tasks have been moved to, your dedicated machines. But I still use it sometimes for like these oddball things I want to do where I can't quite, I'll use it as a boring machine when I need something, fastened down horizontally and I want to drill into. Or I've done some odd things with a disc sander where I need to fasten the thing down and move the disc sander into the thing. I've done that several times. Just anything odd that I can't do, I'll still go back to the Shopsmith.
So, okay, I love them myself. I've used them for years. I've wanted one since before I could ever afford one. But I also understand that they have limitations. And like you say, maybe you become obsessed about a particular feature, and there are individual versions of that feature that's a tool of its own that could be, substantial or whatever someone's looking for. But I get a little frustrated. If somebody doesn't want one, that's fine. I get frustrated with people that put them down and consider them toys and would make somebody think twice about getting one for themselves, where otherwise they may not be able to have a tool to do any
Yeah.
woodworking. So have you ever
Yeah.
gotten any kind of pushback or people leave comments or anything about you using the Shopsmith, or do you not?
Not
I
really.
don't know that you really have focused on it. I just recognize the table when you're drilling, and maybe
Yeah,
people don't pick up on it.
It'll show up every once in a while, and I'll usually get comments like, "Hey, Shopsmith, I had one of those, or my dad had one." It's usually
Yeah.
positive. I don't think I've gotten any negative comments about it. It's because there is nostalgia to it, because I think a lot of people were getting them for the very small shops, back in the day.
Yep.
And I'll still use it. I've only done wood turning a couple of times, but that's what I'll use.
Yeah.
I need to learn more of that. And so I haven't really heard a lot of negative. I have heard some people, put them down, and I've gotten frustrated with it. It was my only table saw for a while before I got the job. I got a job site, DeWalt job site.
Yeah.
And then I outgrew that too,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, when you want to go from one task to another, you want to saw something and then you want to drill it, you got to, take it apart and do the thing up and do.
Yep.
But when when I started doing this for money, I just couldn't really take that time anymore. I need to be able to move from tool to tool. So,
Yep.
but I mean, if it's it's a small shop and you're doing a hobby,
Yeah. No, I think
like you only
that's
have a
exactly
one-car
who
garage.
So it's targeted after. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I just think
I mean, it's a
about how
well-made tool.
you think about how cool that is, and what a time capsule that is. These folks coming back after the war, they've learned to use their hands and learn the value of making things. And they get to actually buy a house for the first time, or build a house, and that they could buy a tool that would be every common woodworking tool, and it still leave them room for their car in the garage. What a neat concept.
Yeah.
Probably only going to happen back then.
Right.
Do you follow them in any way, Shopsmith? Are you aware of their digital variable speed headstock that they have now?
I have, yeah, I've seen it, because I've had to, replace a couple of parts.
Yeah.
So I'll end up at the website every once in a while. I've seen, that it's digital now. And
Yep.
I had the bandsaw that attached to it,
Yes.
which my brother has now, and I had to replace the what are they called, the tires?
Tire, yeah.
Yeah, to the new, material, whatever it is. I had to do that at some point. So, I don't like follow the whole thing, but I've picked up on some of the newer stuff. Yeah, I didn't know for a long time that they still made them.
Still to this day, surprises a lot of people. Yeah. You openly admitted in one of your videos, I think maybe you were going to or from a maker's fair, and you talked a bit about anxiety, some social anxiety when it came to doing something like that. Does that carry over to being in front of a camera? And if so, how did you get past that?
Yeah, it's a weird dichotomy, because my background is actually my degree is in theater. And I think there's probably a pathology there about, people, introverts. I mean, a lot of theater people are introverts.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's an outlet. It's an outlet for them to, get up.
Yeah.
Because you've got a script. You don't have to, bounce off of, a spontaneous conversation. You've got a script, and you can get out there and express yourself.
Me on stage. It's Hamlet who's on stage.
Right. Right. And the video we were talking about was my first maker. That's when I actually started to identify as a maker and started to follow YouTube. And I had started my channel, and I went to that first maker fair out in San Francisco, somebody's going to call me on it. It's north of it's outside of San Francisco. It's the Bay Area. Right. And it was the first time that I had met other makers in person. And I got there and I walked in, and there's these remote control, Star Wars things, and people in costume, and just absolute nerds about making stuff. And I went, oh, my people.
These are my
And
people.
and I met some of the people that I knew from YouTube, and oh, these are just guys. These are just guys with, channels, and they just make stuff. And it was, I had become aware, and there was someone else that I had seen there from YouTube who, and I could tell that they had really bad social anxiety when I was trying to talk to them. I got to the point where I could recognize it in somebody else.
Yeah.
And I had started to recognize it in the community, just being there at Maker Faire. And I have it myself. I have to, like, I can do it for a while, be out at one of these, events. And then every once in a while I gotta go hide for a while.
Yes.
And just like reset, which is a great thing about Maker Camp. If you got a cabin there at the resort, you can just disappear for an hour and then come back and, rejoin everybody again. And I decided to, right after that, because it was a big deal for me, meeting this group of people for the first time. And just before I flew out, I decided to shoot a thing about, saying, hey, I'm an anxious person. If I act weird, if you meet me, well, I just remembered I just had enough. I think I had like 25,000 subscribers at that point.
Hmm.
It was just enough that people started coming up to me there at Maker Faire and saying, hey, I love your channel, which completely surprised me. And of course I was all awkward. So I think that was part of the reason too, that I did that video saying, hey, I'm going to be awkward. Go ahead and come up to me and say hi anyway. If I'm awkward, it's not you. And let other people know in the community that it's, evidently there's a lot of us, so you're not alone. And I think it's an outlet. I've thought about doing a talk on this at like Workbench Con or something about, being socially anxious and having that outlet, again, like theater, the outlet to express yourself through making stuff. And, I think a lot of people, they're into cosplay, I think, for the same reason, as they can dress up as someone else,
right,
and go out and be a different person. And it's a little easier that way.
Think of Adam Savage being able to go anywhere, right? When he's dressed up like Chewbacca, he can go anywhere he wants to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that's actually a really good idea, because you're right. There's a lot of folks, I think, in any community, but definitely in the maker community, and I'm one of them. So I've attended Workbench Con twice, and I really struggle the urge to go to a corner or to go where the crowd is not, and it's uncomfortable because it requires a lot more effort to face that and to go and introduce myself to somebody, have a conversation. So I like that. I thought that your video was a public service, so thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So again, letting people out there know it's, there's a lot of us. Come out to Maker Camp, and everybody, the community is incredibly welcoming. There's people from every type of person, every type of background, and we all just want to like get together and make stuff and drink and do karaoke on Friday night.
All right, one last question, and maybe we'll edit this out. I'm warning you in advance. The other thing that was kind of weird for me at Workbench Con is, having been a guy that's been doing woodworking since 1987, it's weird to see some people that 2 months ago bought a table saw and a camera, and they are YouTube stars and makers.
Yeah,
that's an really odd thing that we didn't experience that back in the 80s and 90s, right? And also, my first time there, I walked in, and there was a crowd that looked like they were doing a Jimmy DiResta lookalike contest. They all had the same beard and baseball caps, and several people had bandanas hanging out of their pockets, and
a lot of beards
boots,
and glasses.
And it was like, this must be the secret sauce, right? The success for my YouTube channel is I'm gonna I'm going to emulate Jimmy. You do your own thing, which I think is why you stand out. But
Yeah,
you know how do you feel about what's going on in the world of YouTube creators? Do you have any feeling, or do you just keep pushing forward?
it's well, I'll say, by the way, that like you mentioned, like doing my own thing. I originally started doing, I wasn't going to be on camera. Like my early videos, I do not show up on camera much, sometimes not at all. I just wanted to focus on telling us the story of making something just through visuals.
Chef John.
I'm sorry?
Chef John from Food Wishes, where his
Oh, okay.
entire thing is just you're seeing from the perspective
Yeah.
of if you were looking down doing the thing.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do. But just recently, I went the other way. I was getting on camera every once in a while, just like if I had to explain something,
Right.
I would get on camera. But several weeks ago, I was getting frustrated with the whole YouTube thing a couple of years ago, and it happened with everybody. YouTube changed somehow. Everybody's views went down. Subscribership slowed down for everybody. And I was getting frustrated with trying to do what I thought I needed to do to try to get more, more views and actually make a career. I still do client work even now. Because it doesn't pay, I'm not getting big subscribers. I get a few every once in a while. But yeah, for several weeks ago, I just went, you know what, screw this. I think it was with or right after the video I did on that sign with Jimmy. I don't know if I can use foul language on this.
Let's find out.
I said F it. I just took a complete F it attitude at one point. I'm just going to do whatever I want at this point. I'm just going to be on camera. I'm just going to make the dumb jokes and just be myself. And it seems to be working, where I just completely went, just put more of my personality in it.
I'll use a word I don't use often. It's endearing, right? When you lean against something and you take a little break and you tell us something about, what you're thinking, or, that's, I recall even you remodeling your loft and building a crazy staircase, 2 different videos, by the way. It's not you putting things on a shelf, it's you pausing and saying something that's engaging. So yeah,
I think that was the one. It was the cleaning up and adding shelving up in that loft. I think that was the video where I went, screw this, I'm just going to have fun. And I just I'm always making like nerdy references just to myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't put them on camera. And I was like, screw it, I'm just going to make all the dumb, Dark Crystal, Star Trek references all I want. And that one seemed to do, I'm like, nobody's going to watch me cleaning out a loft. So, I don't care if they watch it all. I'm just going to have fun. And it worked. Somehow it worked. And I've kind of been doing it since.
That's great.
But yeah, so yeah, to your other question, about, there are, Workbench Con, you'll see a different sort of, that's focused a lot more on the business side of making, which is an important side to it. There's a lot of talks on, how to, be more successful on YouTube and how to deal with sponsors or that sort of thing. There's also making, I think they do some welding there too and stuff. I think they had some woodworking and things. So it is still a variety, but there's a lot more of the influencer side at Workbench Con. So you'll see, the usual people, like Jimmy or Annabelle Trades and,
Izzy Swan.
Yeah, Izzy and a lot of the YouTubers that you're used to, but there's also a lot of the, the more the influencer side of the, a lot of people there, like Maker Camp, there's not a lot of people I don't know or I'm not familiar with. Workbench Con is more people I'm not familiar with. It's, again, it's nothing bad. It's just there's a more of a mixed crowd there, which is great also. And so there is a more influencer side And there are, like some people who will, maybe see an opportunity in this field and, start, doing a YouTube channel on making, who didn't really have a background in it. And again, I'm not making any judgments about that.
Yeah.
But there is a, there are different crowds to that.
Sure.
So
well, there's the crowd that can't wait to get their picture taken in front of the Workbench Con W. And then there's guys like me that stand back and think, well, that's not how folding rules are made.
don't tell anybody.
It's a folding rule.
Don't. They almost lost that W, by the way, my first year. Yeah. Well, I didn't know somebody.
What do you mean?
Don't tell anybody. But who was it? It was me. It was me and Zyla Foxland, and I think Dave Bauer, and who else? I apologize to whoever I'm forgetting. We were hanging out that final night, and they had shut the main convention area, and that W was just sitting outside the door, like next to a couple bags of trash. And we're like, oh, they're just going to throw that out. They just make a new one, and so we were going to steal it. We didn't. When we went back, it was gone. So I think we realized that somebody had just set it outside, and they were coming back in a minute to take it with them, but they almost lost it that year.
Wow. You could have done like a flat Stanley kind of thing and taken it on the road with you.
Yeah, we were gonna. I don't know which one of us was gonna take it. Probably me, because I think I was the only one who drove there. But
you had to have had some appreciation for the artistic nature of a giant W made from.
Oh yeah. Anything oversized, anything anything outsized. I think the world's largest anything. That's one of my that's actually one. That's a project I very much. It's like a bucket list item, is to make the world's largest something.
Yes.
Which is something, I would like to do with, maybe get Jimmy involved in that, because he's done some large construction.
Okay, so here's my dream. Here I live in the High Point, North Carolina area, where it's formerly really the furniture capital of the world. I think that's somewhere in China now. But they have
they have a giant chair. Is that right?
There's a giant chair in Thomasville, Chair City, as they call it.
Right.
There's a giant chest of drawers and the drawers are open. One drawer is open with some socks hanging out. So here's what I want to do. I want to steal the giant chair, and then a couple days later, I want it to show up in front of the chest of drawers, and I want the socks to be gone.
Right.
I don't know why. That
sure.
Tickles me, but to be the one that makes the world's largest something, even if it only lasts for a minute, you really ought to submit your chandelier to Guinness. Did you use Guinness bottles at least?
I did not. No, it was all mostly. I can't remember at this point. We used some local brews, and I think we used some national too, just for the colors.
So I'm going to be in Dallas in a couple weeks. Well, I'll be down the street at the Hard 8 barbecue. Probably won't be going over to see your chandelier. The restaurant that you did all the signs and that you made that massive changeable letter sign, is that in the Dallas area? Should I seek it out?
That's in the Colony. That's north of here. It's a place called Truck Yard. There's two. There's the original Truck Yard, which is on the same block as the place I'm going to put the Back to the Future clock on. And then there's the newer, which it's more like a complex. It's in the Colony, and that's where a lot of it's the one where a lot of the stuff I did was there.
Well, fantastic, Wesley. Thank you so much for taking time.
It's
been a pleasure to meet you. I wish you much success. Like I say, you got a fan in North Carolina, at least one of me. I don't know what the algorithm or the analytics of this tell you, but there's at least one. Keep doing what you do, and
thank you.
Make it a great week.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Let me talk about myself for way too long. You may have to turn this down.